Hi and welcome to my video. This week I am going back to basics with a requested video from Instagram. The request came from Rahul and he wanted an in-depth video on how to make roti. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And this video is going to be part of an ongoing series that I'm calling Pandemic Cooking. While in lockdown, so many of us are having to cook 3 meals a day. So this series is designed to help you with some of the basics like roti, rice, dals, sabzis, hopefully all things that you can make easily with items that are easy for you to find during this time. I will be going rather in depth in this video, so here are some time markers in case you'd like to skip ahead. The most important thing that you need to know really is the ratio of flour to water. And in this recipe, because we're making rotis or phulkas, we're going to be using atta, which is whole wheat flour. The ratio is 2 parts atta to 1 part water, and this is true of most brands of atta, and it should hold up even if you get your atta from the mill. I keep a little bit of oil on hand, and I also use a spoon to mix my atta in the beginning. I start out by making a hole in the atta, and then I pour all of the water directly inside that hole. I'm using Pillsbury atta, and I know very well how this atta responds to water, so I'm comfortable adding all of the water at once. But if you'd rather err on the side of caution, add a little bit at a time. I then slowly start to mix the atta with my spoon, just bringing it together away from the edges of the bowl and into the center. I do this out of personal preference because I do not like the feeling of wet, sticky atta on my fingers, and I like to postpone the moment where I inevitably have to use my hands for as long as possible. That being said, you are going to have to use your hands at some point, so make sure that your hands are thoroughly washed and cleaned, especially in these times, and then get in there. I like to start off by pinching the dough and squeezing it through my fingers, and then I eventually start using a little bit of knuckle power. And of course, atta is spilling out of the bowl, which is fine because I'm working on a clean surface. Hopefully you are too. And if things reach the point where your bowl can no longer accommodate the mixing and kneading of the dough, just empty it out onto that clean surface and continue working there. You don't have to use both hands. Sometimes this can be easily done with just one hand, but if it feels right to you and you feel like you need to get a second hand in there, go for it. And this is where you might choose to use a little bit of oil as well. I like to rub some on top of my knuckles, of course, because I tend to use my knuckles quite a bit when I'm bringing this together, and also on the palm of my hand. The motion that I'm using is probably best described as a pushing and folding motion. So there you can see I'm kind of folding it over and then pushing it out, folding it over and pushing it out. And you are going to feel a change in the consistency of the atta as the moisture gets incorporated, as it starts to smoothen out. I don't really know anything about gluten and activating gluten. I'm not even sure if that's a factor. I don't think we need to read into it, but I'm just going to mention it that some people say knead it until the gluten is activated. I have no idea what that means. I knead it until it's easy to depress and it comes back a little bit. See, when I press it there, it kind of comes back just a bit. That's the consistency that I'm looking for. No major lumps or anything, nice and smooth. Just work it into a little ball. If you're not going to use it right away, you can store it in an airtight container in your fridge. It should stay for up to 3 days, but I wouldn't use it beyond that. And if you're going to use it soonish, then I would cover it with a moist tea towel or a moist paper towel until you're ready to make your rotis. Now, when it comes to making rotis or phulkas, chapatis, whatever you call it, everybody kind of has their own tricks and methods for doing it as efficiently as possible. I think if you're starting out or if you don't have a lot of experience with this, it's a good idea to make a series of balls and put them aside. That way you kind of get a feel for the size of each ball. It's easier to check for consistency in terms of size. But if you want to make each roti one by one, that's totally fine. To do that, you're going to need some atta in a bowl and your rolling pin, or belan as it's called. I like to start by putting the little ball of dough in the atta, giving it a gentle squeeze, flipping it over, and then doing the same so that it's nicely coated in that atta. And then I usually shake off any excess atta, just dust it off in the bowl. Again, here you want to make sure that you're working on a nice, clean, preferably smooth surface. And then start rolling out this ball of dough with your rolling pin, gently but applying consistent pressure as you roll it out. To ensure a somewhat round shape, I would recommend rotating the disc as you roll it out, either with your hand or if it rotates naturally with the rolling pin, that's also fine. But I think you are going to have to turn it, maybe sometimes flip it over here and there. And if you find that the roti is sticking to the surface that you're working on, you need to dust a little atta, a little bit of flour on that roti or on the surface so that it rotates smoothly and nicely. So here I'm pretty much done shaping my roti. It's fairly round. I think it's as round as it's going to get. You want to aim for a thickness anywhere between 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters. I think if you go beyond that, the experience of cooking and ultimately enjoying your roti is not going to be what you expect it to be, so try to keep this to a thickness of 2 to 4 millimeters. I mean, I would even say that 4 is like too thick, but if you're just starting out, you know, that's fine. You might not be able to get it as thin as you would like, but that's okay. It'll be edible. And the more rotis you make, the better you will get at rolling them out to a consistent size. I'm still not, you know, perfect when it comes to this, and that's totally fine. It's okay. Be kind to yourself. Now, if your roti isn't round, no matter how hard you try, and you really, really want to eat a round roti, let's say for the sake of argument that this is what you rolled out, don't worry about it. All you need to do is get a round cover or bowl or something and use it to cut out your roti. So just put it on top of whatever that you rolled out, squeeze it down, remove the excess, et voila, you have a perfectly round roti. Do not at all be ashamed of doing this. These are challenging times and each of us does what we have to do in order to survive. Okay? We're going to move on now to cooking the roti. So you need a hot tawa or a hot skillet. You're also going to need a little bit of oil or ghee, but that's actually optional. So if you don't want to use it, it's totally fine. You also need something in which to put your rotis. I got this in Guatemala during our travels. It's actually for tortillas, but it works well for roti. Similarly, you can use a kitchen towel and just cover them in that. It's also a good idea to have another kitchen towel and or a spatula. As the roti cooks, it's going to start developing these little pockets of air inside, and that's a really good sign. You want to watch for that. Once that starts happening, you might want to flip it over once. And I should say that I'm cooking my roti on medium-high, and I'm using an electrical element. If you have a gas stove, then this is going to be so much easier for you because you can easily and quickly adjust the level of the heat. Brushing on some oil or ghee is entirely optional. I don't like rotis that have oil or ghee on them, but sometimes people add a little bit, and that's okay. It's up to you. As it cooks, you're going to want to use that spatula or that kitchen towel to guide the steam inside your roti toward the edges of your roti so that it swells and puffs up, and that's what makes it a phulka, right? When it's completely swollen. And once it's cooked, you can transfer it between the kitchen towel or into that roti holder. So I'm going to show you again one more time. I'm going to speed up the camera a little bit. You can see the air pockets forming in the roti. At this point, go ahead and flip it over. You can brush on a little bit of oil or ghee, which is optional, and then use that scrunched up kitchen towel to rotate the roti and guide the steam toward the edges. I really wish there was like an easier way to explain this, but as you press on the roti when it cooks, it's going to puff up, hopefully, and then you want to push the opposite end of where you want the steam to move. Does that make sense? Use the towel to guide the steam toward the opposite end, the other end of the roti. Hopefully the video explains it better than I'm able to. And once it's puffed up, it's fully cooked. You don't need to cook it any more than that. Just transfer it to where the other rotis are between the kitchen towel or in the holder, and you're done. You want to cook all your rotis in the same way. They might not all swell up to exactly the same level of puffiness, but that's okay. As long as there's steam in there and the steam gets to all the edges, you know your roti is cooked. It's fine. If your roti bursts, if it just pops, you'll know because steam is going to come shooting out of where the roti is torn. So to give you a look right here, you can see it's torn right there. Flip it over to the other side and press the roti where it's torn. Because if you press anywhere else, steam is just going to escape from the tear in your roti. But if you press it where it's torn, that's going to keep that closed, and the steam inside, you can work with the whatever steam is left inside, and you could probably still get a decent roti out of it. You can totally get a decent roti even out of a roti that is torn. Not a big deal. See? Right there. And put it away and keep going. So that brings us to the end of a very in-depth look at how to make rotis from the stage of kneading that dough all the way through to cooking your roti and ultimately, hopefully, enjoying a well-made roti alongside your favorite sabzi or dal. Thank you for spending time with me. I really hope this was helpful and instructive. I hope that everyone is staying safe during this time. And I will see you soon with a video about how to make rice. That's going to come out on Thursday, so subscribe to this channel so you don't miss it. And I will see you then. Okay, bye-bye.